Today I'm going to be reviewing this Traska, but I will not be reviewing it on the bracelet. And the reason for that is because while it is well built, it is nicely brushed, it has a nice logo on there. I don't know if you can see that. And it has, what's crazy is it has perlage in the clasp. I don't know if that can be picked up or not, but that's pretty cool. But the downside to it is that it just didn't fit me right. You know, I tried to size it. I tried to use the micro adjustment, of which there's many micro adjustments, but it just never sat well on my wrist. And I don't know if it's because it's a bulkier type bracelet. I don't know if it's because I'm used to leather straps and silicone, but it just never was comfortable enough for me. So we're going to be doing the review on a silicone strap that I really like it on. Let's get to it. A little about the brand Traska. There's really not that much to say because last year this watch, or at least this model, went on to Kickstarter and raised, I think, close to $50,000, which was much more than they budgeted for. And they were a successful Kickstarter campaign. This is their only model right now. It was highly successful, and I can see why. They do this in black dial, sapphire bezel, black dial, steel bezel, mint dial, steel bezel, mint dial, black bezel, and they also do a gray dial, which is now sold out with both bezel options, and a PVD version, all black. The only ones that are still in stock are the black dial variations and the PVD versions. The mint I probably would have preferred, but honestly this black, it's nice, understated, and as I'll show you a little bit later, I think a lot of the elements come together really well here. So let's start a little with some dimensions. We have about a 40 millimeter case. You have a 13.3 millimeter height. And a 48 millimeter lug to lug. And we have a lug width of about 20 millimeters. Now, getting into the dial of this watch, which is probably most of what I think this watch excels at, although other elements are really great. Now, as I said, this black dial is a little more under the radar. The mint dial, I think, is a real standout, and that's probably the coolest version, I would say. But for those of the people who really just like black divers, like that all monochrome look, this is a great option. The shade of black is really deep, really rich, and the ceramic bezel, I think, really complements the face of the watch. In my personal opinion, I think the ceramic bezel looks best on this black dial, while the steel bezel looks best on the mint dial. And I think with this particular model, I think the monochromeness of it is most of its strength. We have the black dial, the white lettering, the white filled lume, the white outside numerals, and the white markings on the chapter ring, as well as a black chapter ring. Now, specifically focused on that chapter ring, I really like that they blacked that out as well as put the markings on the outside. I feel like it opens up space on the dial as well as gives a little added dimensionality to the watch, because when you're looking down on it, the hash markers for the minutes now slope downward. They now really come from the bezel into the watch face. And I feel like that's just a nice attention to detail, a nice, what would I say, a nice upgrade over standard kind of watch design. Now, speaking of its uniqueness, I think this watch is really its own. It's not trying to be a Submariner. It's not trying to be anything else. Sure, maybe if you look at it from afar, you see the blackness, you're like, oh, maybe it's trying to be a sub, but no, it's its own thing. The markers are unique. The hands, I don't even know what I would really call those hands. I guess they're kind of like an extended leaf hybrid with a dolphin style-ish kind of hand. But either way, they're really cool. The way they start thin at the ends, grow towards the middle, and again come to a 16th point at the end, I think is really nice. And if we just regard the hands really quick, I love how everything just reaches the extremity. We have that second hand pretty much going all the way to that outer chapter ring. We have the minutes hand, again, going pretty much all the way out to that outer chapter ring. We have the second hand. While it's not really going all the way out to the markers, I feel like it doesn't look too short at all. And this just shows that attention was paid to how this watch was designed. This was not just a carbon copied watch. This was made its own. Now, the watch face is loomed, the bezel is loomed, and before I move on to talking about this cool little case, I guess we'll show you some lume. So here we have BGW9 lume. The watch is pretty much fully loomed as much as it could. I mean, the only thing that's not loomed is the dial itself. We have the hands, the markers, the bezel, and I think it looks really nice. It has a bluish green kind of glow. It looks a little more blue on camera than it is in real life, and very legible. It lasts a very good amount of time, and I just appreciate this little detail because this is probably one of the best looms that I've had on a watch, and it's nice. I appreciate it. Now if we bring it side by side with my Timex, you see the Timex is a little brighter, but the Freediver is still very legible, very much still glowing there strongly. It is showing up a little darker on the camera than it does in real life, but trust me, this lume, pretty awesome. Let's talk about the case. Now the case of the Freediver, much like the rest of it, is its own thing. We have brush sides, done very nicely, very finely. We have a nice signed Traska little logo crown. We have a nice knurling on the crown, which matches the coin edge bezel. The crown is also screwed down, but we only have about, I think, 100 meters of water resistance. Yeah, 100 meters. But I would trust this in the pool because it has a screw down crown, so I'm pretty sure that 100 meters is like a true 100 meters kind of. We have a nice little Freediver emblazoned on the case back. And we have the brand name, the fact that it's waterproof. Don't know what that is, maybe a serial number. Sapphire crystal and stainless steel. And if we see, we have nice little attention to detail. We have this nice polished chamfered edge that runs all the way along the length of the case. And this really just gives it a nice, sexy, streamlined look. And it also, if you notice, runs on the inner lug as well. So it really thins out the lugs in general. And the lugs themselves do point in rather than just flare straight out. So it gives it a more aggressive stance. It thins them out, makes them go inward. And I think it just adds to a nice little stance on the watch, makes it more proud, makes it stand unique. Now you see there's radial brushing on the lugs, which I love. I don't know what it is, but it just gives a sense of wholeness to the watch. It's, you know, it's a detail that people miss, but if people care, they don't miss it. The bezel is 120 click, very strong. It will not go on accident. Very loud. There is backplay if you try very hard to move it. You know, you can feel the spring in there moving away, but if you just push it a little bit, there's no backplay. So I would say there's no backplay really. Lines up perfectly. And that is the watch. I love these little chamfers. It adds to the watch's character. It makes it unique. It gives it something special. And it's a point of visual draw. You're looking at it on the wrist, and the way those polished surfaces catch the light just draws your eyes and makes you really admire the watch. Now the brush, or at least I'm pretty sure the whole case itself, is treated with a special coating that makes it even harder than regular stainless steel. So in theory, this is not very, but in theory, this would be much harder to scratch than a normal stainless steel watch, which is good because this is a diver. And even though some of us baby our watches, others don't. And hopefully, because of this extra coating, this watch will be able to stand the test of time. Now that 40mm case and 48mm lug length makes it wear really well on the wrist. So let me show you that now. So here we have it on my 6.5-inch wrist. I think it doesn't look too big. It doesn't look out of place. It looks great on the wrist, I would say. You can obviously wear this on a bigger wrist. I think it has enough presence. I think the way the lugs stand, it gives it an aggressive kind of look. The way it angles in and the sharp lines that the polished surfaces give it. So I think bigger wrists can wear this just as well as my small wrist can, and even smaller if you have maybe 6.25-inch wrist, maybe 6-inch might be pushing it, but hey, if you love the watch, go for it. But yeah, that black, super classy, the monochrome look, all black and white. I do really dig it. Very, very nice. So here we can really wrap up with my final thoughts on the watch. What are the pros? I probably forgot to mention this, but we have a Seiko NH38 movement. Couple pros in there. 1, dependable workhorse movement. 2, lower beat rate, lower service intervals. And 3, not the NH35, so there's no the ghost position date wheel. It's you don't push it out and feel a date window that's not there. It's just simple, push it out, that's the setting the time. It's not a big deal necessarily, but it's an attention to detail that watch collectors and just anyone who has the watch would appreciate. The hacking seconds, it's great. Screw down crown, I appreciate. Now, I like that we have a ceramic bezel at this price range. I mean, there's plenty of companies who still do aluminum bezels at $1,000 and up. And the fact that this watch comes for $400 from their website with the sapphire bezel and $375 for the steel bezel, that's pretty great. If you couldn't tell from earlier, I love how these polished surfaces just add some visual play to the watch, adds something to the design, breaks up the monotony of just an all brushed case, gives the lugs a more aggressive stance. That is really cool. And I think overall, I just love the way this watch is its own. The dial, I have not seen something like it. It's almost like shark teeth that the markers are trying to represent. And in the end, I think that's pretty cool. Again, I think one of the main things I love about this dial is the chapter ring in the rehaut. That is just super cool. I love the dimensionality that adds. I love the way it frees up space in the center dial, kind of opening the dial up. And that's just something you don't see in a lot of watches. You know, they'll just polish or brush that rehaut section. Even watches in the $700 to $800 range, like Squale, do that. And while Squale do it and they polish the heck out of it and it looks kind of cool, I think this is a really great way to go about doing it. The sapphire crystal, the extra hard coating, the ceramic bezel, all these things add to the longevity of the watch. And I think this is a watch that will look good for years to come, and because the movement in it will work well for years to come. Now, my main cons would be one, the mint dial seems to be sold out, which sucks because I love the mint. And again, harping on this bracelet here, the clasp I think is maybe just a little too bulky for me. Maybe my delicate wrist just can't handle this more aggressive, kind of very, not heavy, but more heavy duty type bracelet. It's very well done, just not my preference. But really, those are my only cons with the watch. If you're looking for a dive watch, you don't want the SKX, you don't want a Mako, you don't want any of those Seiko Turtles. You kind of, maybe we're looking at Laurier, but you want something different. I think this is a great option. It's unique. It's not really playing on any other designs. It's its own watch. And it's a great buy. Thanks for watching.